Hey, I'm Mike Jones, EOS implementer. Most people are familiar with the organizational chart, and most people who've heard of EOS are familiar with the accountability chart. But the issue that I see with most clients and anyone who's trying to use EOS is that it's very easy to not use the accountability chart in the way it's meant to be used. So I'm going to show you what the accountability chart is, and then very briefly show you the three major points that force you to use the accountability chart, which is the most important tool in the EOS toolbox. Okay, so what is the accountability chart? The accountability chart is used to take a step back and identify the right culture, right structure for the organization. All right, so we take a step back to find the right structure of the organization. We define the roles that every function is accountable for. And then we, last but not least, place the people in the seats. And we're trying to get to the point where we have 100% right people in the right seats, all right? So the accountability chart is based on the assumption that all companies have three major functions: sales and marketing, ops, and finance, okay? They also have the integrator, who manages the day-to-day of the business, organizes and harmonizes the key functions, drives accountability in the organization, and the visionary, who is the big picture thinker, loves to stay at the 30,000 foot level, shows up with 20 ideas a day, doesn't like to get in the weeds, okay? From there, we customize these major functions and identify the 3 to 7 functions that your organization has. Then we add the 5 roles that every function is accountable for, okay? We add the 5 roles that these 2 functions are accountable for, because we want to have those 2 clearly differentiated into what they are responsible for. And then we build it out for the entire organization so that every function or seat is called out with what they do and their 5 roles. So that's the basic accountability chart. That's the first tool that we use with clients when they're implementing EOS. It can be used to solve many issues in the organization, because typically if you have an issue, it's a symptom of a root cause, and dialing into who is the owner of the issue will typically solve that issue. And so we say, look at that accountability chart whenever you have an issue and a lack of clarity of who owns it and who owns the responsibility of it, okay? So how do we use it? Oftentimes I'll see teams build this accountability chart, put in all the work, and then it goes away and they never bring it up again. It gets out of date and it doesn't become useful. So it needs to be updated regularly in order to be useful. And I always teach 3 major areas that force you to use the accountability chart, okay? First is hiring. When you hire people, to do it the right way, before you create the job description and before you do an interview, here's what you need to do. You need to identify on the accountability chart what seat are they filling and what are their 5 roles. So before you create the job description, this work needs to be done and it needs to be identified. So on the job description, it will have your company's core values, which you need to hire people according to. It will have the roles on the accountability chart. It will have the measurables that they're accountable for on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. And then it'll have anything else you want to put on the job description. So before you create a job description and even think about hiring someone, the accountability chart needs to be updated and they need to be able to see where they sit. The next one is in the quarterly conversation. So in EOS, we recommend that every person in the company gets 1 quarterly conversation with their boss, which is a 60 to 90 minute offsite meeting, casual, where you have a back and forth to see how things are going, given feedback both ways. And the prep to have that is to review the person's core values of the company, how they're doing against them, their 5 roles on the accountability chart, and their rocks for the last quarter. And so before you have a quarterly conversation, you have to know their 5 roles and see how they're doing against them, which is another point at which the accountability chart needs to be updated before the quarterly conversation. The last one, and this is the most frequent one, is IDS. So IDS, Identify, Discuss, Solve, is the framework and structure that we use to solve all the issues in our weekly level 10 meeting. When you IDS every week, and EOS companies have a level 10 meeting at the leadership team level and all the departments, it's important to not move on to the discuss portion until you have dug down into the root of the issue. At that point, oftentimes, when you're identifying the issue, a great question is, what type of issue is this? Is this a people issue? If so, who owns this issue? And that's for any kind of issue. Who owns this issue? If you don't know who owns it, that's a great opportunity to pull out the accountability chart and make sure you're crystal clear on who owns it. That will help solve the issue and make it easier if we know who owns it. Those are the 3 major points that I recommend teams pull out the accountability chart, and it's a forcing mechanism for you to update and use it and bring it to life in your organization. If you do, you will find this is the most important tool that you have. It solves many issues just by being clear on where does everyone sit in the organization, what they're accountable for. The accountability chart. Thank you.